there are basically 5 criteria for a hadith to be Sahih. Number 1, the narrator should be of good character. That means he should be honest, he should be truthful, he should not lie, he should not cheat, he should be of good character. That is the first criteria. Number 2, he should be of very good memory, so that he can repeat what he has heard of the Prophet. Or according to Ibn Salah, it can also be that what he heard from the Prophet, he remembers it and he writes it down, and then if required, he can again read it. Even that's accepted. The second category is the memory should be very good. You can repeat it at any time, or at least remember it till the time he writes it. The third criteria for hadith to be Sahih is that there should be a continuous chain of narrators. There should be consistency. I cannot say that I heard from my great-grandfather. If my great-grandfather died before I was born, how can I say I heard from my great-grandfather? So there should be a continuous chain of narrators. All the narrators should have met each other and personally heard from them. The fourth criteria is that there should not be any flaw. I'll give you an example of a flaw, that 2 contemporary narrators who lived at the same time, if one chain of narrators says that narrator A heard from narrator B, and according to the Rijal, the history, we know that these 2 narrators, though they lived at the same time, but they never met. So how can narrator A heard the hadith from narrator B when they did not meet? So this is a flaw. So there should not be any flaw. And the fifth criteria for hadith to be Sahih is that it should not contradict with any other sound hadith. Any other hadith which is sound, which is Sahih, if it contradicts, then it is wrong. So it should not contradict with any other sound hadith, any other Sahih hadith or Hasan hadith. So there are basically 5 criteria for hadith to be Sahih. Number 1, the narrator should be of a good character. Number 2, of good memory. Number 3, there should be continuity in the chain of narrator. The sanad should be there. Number 4, there should not be irregularities or flaws. Number 5, it should not contradict any other sound hadith. If all these 5 criteria are met, it is called a Sahih hadith. If there is a slight flaw in any of these, then the hadith becomes Hasan, but it is accepted. It is Maqbool. In the Sahih hadith, there are 2 types of hadith. That is the Sahih hadith with continuous chain and Sahih hadith with a broken chain. In the Hasan again, there are 2 types. Hasan hadith with a continuous chain and Hasan hadith with the broken chain. So these are the categories of the Maqbool hadith, accepted hadith. If it falls under Sahih or Hasan, it is accepted as a hujjah, as an argument for you to accept it. If it's a Sahih hadith or Hasan hadith, and if the Prophet has prohibited, it becomes haram for you. If the Prophet has commanded you, it becomes compulsory for you, or it becomes mustab for you. The second category is hadith which are Zaif or Mawdu. Zaif has again got various categories. Zaif, Jiddan, Zaif because of the chain of narrator, Zaif because of inconsistency in the narrator. Various, there are multiple different types of Zaif hadith. Time will not permit to go into detail. Same with Mawdu, there are different types. So basically, the third type of classification based on authenticity, and there are other classifications also, makes a hadith which is Maqbool, hadith which is Mardud, that is rejected. Now, the question also asks one more question, that are all the Sahih hadith of same category? That means all the hadith which are Maqbool, are they of same category? No. There are levels. And I remember when one of my first teachers of hadith, that is Sheikh Zia Rahman Azmi, may Allah grant him Jannah, he was the head and the dean of the department of hadith in the Islamic University of Medina, and he expired just a few months back on the day of Arafah, on the 30th of July, just 3 months back. And may Allah grant him Jannat al-Firdaus. He was my first teacher in hadith, and he said that there are 10 categories, levels of Maqbool hadith. 8 categories of Sahih and 2 of Hasan. Imam Bukhari, in his Jami Sahih, he put additional criteria for making a hadith Sahih. Besides the 5 criteria which I discussed, Imam Bukhari put in additional criteria which are stricter. Then only he said, I will include in my Jami Sahih. I'll give you an example. Normally for hadith to be Sahih, the narrator should be of a minimum level of category 5. The Muhaddithin, they have written the history and biography of all the narrators, and they have given 12 levels to the narrators. Number 1 is Sikka. All the Sahabas come in the Sikka, means the best. Number 1, truthful. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, last is Khazab, liar. So if the narrator is up to level 5, it can be counted as hadith which is Sahih. Imam Bukhari, he says, in my silsila Sahih, in my Sahih Bukhari, I will only take narrators up to level 3. That means he is putting a stricter condition. So if Bukhari put additional criteria to make it more authentic, if it's a hadith in Sahih Bukhari, it's of a high level. Imam Muslim, who was a student of Imam Bukhari, he put few additional criteria of his own. He said, I will take narrators only up to level 4. 4 and above. Bukhari said 3 and above, 1, 2, 3. Muslim said, I will take up to level 4. I will not take level 5. His additional criteria. So, the Muhaddithin, they say that number 1, the highest hadith is that hadith which is muttafiq alayh. That means the hadith which was compiled by Bukhari and he said it is Sahih in his Sahih Bukhari, and the hadith which were compiled by Imam Muslim in his Sahih Muslim, and it occurs in both of them. So if it occurs in Sahih Bukhari and in Sahih Muslim, it is called as muttafiq alayh. That means it is available in both Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. And there's a book, Lulu al-Marjan, that has collection of all the hadith which occurs in both Bukhari and Muslim. So that is number 1. The hadith that is present in both Bukhari and Muslim, that is the highest level, number 1. Number 2 is the hadith which are present in Sahih Bukhari. Number 3 are the hadith which are present in Sahih Muslim. Number 4, the Muhaddithin, they say that Imam Bukhari was not able to analyze all the hadith. The Muhaddithin say that approximately today, there are approximately 1 million hadith. And Bukhari memorized approximately 6 lakh hadith, 600,000 hadith. So the Muhaddithin say that those hadith which Imam Bukhari did not analyze, we are analyzing and applying the criteria of Bukhari. Then the Muhaddithin, they say that those hadith which Imam Muslim did not analyze, we are applying the criteria of Imam Muslim on those hadith which Imam Muslim did not analyze, and we are telling this fulfill this criteria. So number 4 is the hadith which Imam Bukhari did not analyze, the other Muhaddithin analyzed, and which Imam Muslim did not analyze, and the other Muhaddithin applied the criteria of Imam Muslim and analyzed, and it's matching both the criteria of Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, but these Imam did not analyze themselves. That is number 4. Number 5 is those hadith which Imam Bukhari did not analyze but fulfill the criteria of Imam Bukhari. That comes to number 5. Number 6 is those hadith which Imam Muslim did not analyze but fulfill the criteria of Imam Muslim, analyzed by the other Muhaddithin. That comes at level 6. In Imam Bukhari, as I mentioned, there are 7,563 hadith. Even in Sahih Muslim, there are 7,563 hadith. The numbering differs in different editions. So this is level 6. Level 7 is a Sahih hadith with continuous chain, which doesn't fulfill the criteria of Bukhari and Muslim, which fulfill the normal criteria of Sahih hadith which I discussed, 5 criteria of Sahih hadith, but it is a continuous chain. Number 8 is a Sahih hadith fulfilling the 5 criteria of Sahih hadith, but it is a broken chain. Number 9 is Hasan hadith, little bit doesn't fulfill 100% of Sahih, but very close to it, with a continuous chain. That is number 9, Hasan hadith with a continuous chain. And the 10th category is Hasan hadith with the broken chain. So these are the 10 categories of Sahih hadith. This science of hadith, it is very vast. And believe me, if you compare to how the historians approve any historical fact, and they say, okay, this is historically correct. There is a criteria which normal non-Muslim historians, when they agree that this is historical fact. But the criteria put by the muhaddithin for a hadith to be sahih is multiple times stricter. It is multiple times more difficult. It is multiple times more stringent as what the historians do. That's the reason if for a hadith to be sahih, I just told you the brief of it. It's not that easy. Every narrator, his history has been written. There's a rijal, all in detail. It is so difficult. It is such a minute study that if the muhaddithin, when they give a verdict, there can be a minor difference. There cannot be someone saying it's a very high category, someone saying sahih, the other saying mawdu. It's not possible. It may differ level 1 hadith or level 2. 1 or 2 level may differ, that's it. If authentic, good muhaddithin, they refer and they check. So this is the science of hadith. It is not possible for a layman or a person like me, who's just a student of knowledge. I cannot decipher whether sahih or dhaif. I have read about the criteria, but I am not qualified at all. So this, to classify whether the hadith is sahih or dhaif or mawdu or which level of sahih, it is the work of a muhaddith, specialization. And in the recent time, one of the famous muhaddith, as I mentioned, was Sheikh Nasruddin Albani. And he has done a great job, Sheikh Nasruddin Albani. And the question, which when I studied with Sheikh Ziaur Rahman Azmi, may Allah grant him Jannah, that when we talk about Quran and Sahih Hadith, we don't have all the Sahih Hadith compiled. The maximum I could do, I studied with him in the year 1997. We could say, okay, take Silsila as Sahih, but that doesn't have all the Sahih Hadith. It contains the Sahih Hadith in Kutub Sitta only. Bukhari, Muslim, and the other 4 books. So Alhamdulillah, after Sheikh Ziaur Rahman Azmi, he retired. There are many scholars in the last 1400 years who tried to compile all the Sahih Hadith together in one volume, but all those who tried, they never completed the project. Alhamdulillah, Sheikh Ziaur Rahman Azmi, after he retired, he took about 17 to 18 years to complete this project.